Hello, and welcome back to the Event Modeling and Event Sourcing podcast with your hosts, Martin and Adam. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Adam. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm very jealous of your sunburn.
Yeah, we were just talking a few minutes ago, and I really got my first sunburn today because it was really sunny in Germany.
And we were joking around because I have still to scrape the moss from my feet because Vancouver has the opposite. We have what's called an atmospheric river, and so since last time, it's just been even worse. Outside is very gray, and there's not a dry spot of land anywhere. So if you live in Vancouver, the common joke is that you grow moss on your feet because
Yeah,
most
it's
of the
really funny.
time here it's raining. It's not many people realize that the west coast of Canada is a temperate rainforest, much like the Amazon, except it's not hot. But you still have, a lot of things will grow moss. So everything's green at this point in time. You
Yeah,
have to scrape it off, and my balcony is entirely green. By this time, I have to find a. I really don't want to wash it because I think if I wash it too early in the year, it'll still be
you can do it
green by
again,
the
right?
time the summer comes back.
Yeah,
So anyway, the good part about it, of course, is that the Pacific Ocean is a really good filter. So the rain here is absolutely pure, and so the air is really good, and it's doesn't have any smoke from factories or anything like that.
yeah,
It's one of the best places to live for your health. So, but you pay for it by scraping moss off your feet
yeah.
most of the year.
Well, cannot have it all. You need to choose.
Yeah, I can't have it all. That's our price. But yeah, it was pretty interesting that you already had. I think a couple of weeks ago, you already had really nice weather and
Yeah,
had a nice hike, and it was 25 degrees or something. And
yeah.
now this time you're joining me with a sunburn. I got to go on
Yeah,
vacation
that's
in
a
Munich.
little bit weird. So, and I did really not, I did not think of sun cream or something. It's way too early in the year, but look at me, here I am.
You're the proof that you have nice weather. So, well,
Yeah, exactly.
that's good. Of course, congratulations on new contracts coming up. That's all private info, but very happy to
Oh yeah,
see your success and that more and more companies are starting event modeling and event sourcing. And Jake is doing the same thing out of Portland. So, always good to hear from you about how things are going. We're also signing some contracts and working on some really big systems, which we'll get into actually today. So the world's waking up to all the good stuff that event modeling and event sourcing bring to the systems, the
yeah.
predictability, the removing all these risks that we have in traditional systems. So more and more people are waking up to it. So
It's really
again,
gaining traction.
yeah,
I see it more and more every week. I get more people asking questions, coming in, asking for contracts, asking for trainings, workshops. It's really more and more, and I'm so happy to see that.
yeah, I only see more of it coming along because of some of the topics we'll be covering today. But
Yeah.
first, the announcements. Let's get through the announcements so we can get onto these juicy topics here. So the online course is finished and ready to go.
Oh yes, that's
So
such a big topic. It was.
congratulations, Martin. You have changed this event sourcing, event modeling world in the span of about a year. So thank you for all this effort that you've done, and now this complete course to accompany the book is an
Yeah.
amazing addition. So
It's
tell people how they can join.
it's been so much work, really. I'm so happy to have this course online, and it's online for only 3 days, and more than 40 people already signed up. So I'm really really happy. And I didn't even announce it publicly yet, so I will announce it tomorrow. Tomorrow is the official launch date of the course. So basically, you can just go to eventsourcingcourse.com. There are all the infos. The idea of the course is very simple. It follows the exact same structure of the book. Whenever
Yeah,
there is a
and
chapter in the book, you can there is a lecture in the course, so you can read a chapter in the book and then just jump over, look at how I am doing the modeling or how I'm doing the coding, and then do it yourself with the exercises provided. So
that's
the
great.
idea is really to provide the best learning experience possible.
It's an amazing combination to be able to apply directly what you read and
Yeah,
see the results for yourself. One of the best combinations is having a book to follow, but also a workbook, a whole bunch of exercises. And a
yeah,
lot of times when we studied back in the day, you used to get sometimes a course would have these two books. You would have the material to learn from but then there was also the exercise book, which had all
Yeah,
those things. So that's really nice to see this combination again. I think a lot of people learn this way really well, and I think it's
yeah,
also nice, set of resources to hand over to your new employees. If you decided to run a team or run an organization this way, now
yeah,
you have all the supporting material that is really less coordination, and then you can focus on advanced topics through the workshops that you might want to work on with me or Martin or both of us, or Jake or some of the other people that are doing this. So it's really helps grow the entire community and the resources that are available to everyone. So thank you for doing that. It's I will put the link as well on the eventmodeling.org. Eventmodeling.org already has the book link, so I'm sure we'll sprinkle the link to the course throughout all of the resources that we have about the book
yeah,
out there. So you'll end up being able to find it quite easily. So thanks
yeah. And
again. I can't wait to do it myself.
the and really a nice addition is you get a free license of the Miro toolkit for it. So there's no limitation. You can just work with it, which is also a pretty nice thing, I think.
That's really good. Okay, well, I'm certainly hoping to go through it myself in the next couple of days here. I love the book, and of course, I keep buying the print version so I can hand it out to people.
Yeah, no,
I'm down to my
you are
last.
the one. You are the one who buys
I'm
it.
the one making your Amazon sales go through
Yeah,
the roof.
nice.
Yes. So I have two. I have two left over. I have to be very careful to check the inside that I don't give away the one you signed for me. So I
Oh
have
yeah,
that. I have it
don't do
separate from the other one,
that.
so I don't give it away by accident. But yeah,
Might be
I
worth
have two more.
worth a fortune in a few years. Who knows?
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to buy a few more. But yeah, I will. I'll still be giving those out. I should
I,
just bring some to my office. I think we have some people coming by the office all the time, some clients and people that we know in the industry. Should just have a few copies there to hand out. So because I sometimes forget to take them from home when I'm going to meet with someone. So I should do
I
that.
just ordered a whole bunch of the print versions because I'm doing a lot of talks in the upcoming weeks, and I will give out these books. So I will walk around with bags full of books all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eric Evans did that with domain driven design. He made a little a smaller book, which is actually kind of neat. It kind of gave the Cole's Notes version. Cole's Notes is kind of like a synopsis, small,
Yeah,
um, cliff notes that you have, or something like that if you're studying English. Um, so he used to have a domain driven design little handbook, which really was a summary of the whole blue book. I think it was one
nice.
of the best things that I've seen. So, maybe in the future we'll have a smaller version so you don't break your back carrying 50 books to each event. Especially once you get the hardcover version, they get a little bit more weight. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that'll be really good. Okay, so let's go to the next. So we got and of course the new chapters are coming out. So do get the book, because now that you're free from the from writing the course, there will be more chapters, of course, being added to the book.
Yeah,
As you said, you're back on schedule for that. So
yeah.
there's a
I
big
really had
reading,
to, I really had to pause that, so I couldn't keep up the
of
pace
course.
doing the course, writing the chapters. This really didn't make any sense. But as soon as I finished the course, I immediately started writing chapters, and the first one is already at the reviews.
Oh, great!
So,
So definitely go to LeanPub and search for event sourcing, event modeling, and grab that book, or go to eventmodeling.org, and there's a link there to the book, and of course the course. By the time you're hearing this, the course link will be there as well. And yeah, definitely do that, because of course as you add chapters, you're going to be adding that piece into the coursework so that someone has an exercise for those things, I assume. And so yeah, definitely. Get the book so you have the updates, and you keep current with what's going on.
and
And there is always new stuff. I mean, we talked about new stuff all the time. We have
yeah,
dynamic consistency boundaries. I have more news on that. If you've been watching my live stream, there's the consistency slash context boundary, because we're applying the same thing on the read side now. So there's a lot of innovation in terms of where event modeling is going and where event sourcing is going. It is not a static field. There's better and better ways. A lot of ways to kind of shed the chains of earlier ways of working, and of course those are good guardrails to have in the industry before to actually get started. But now that we have general adoption of event sourcing and event modeling across a lot of organizations and communities, we can go to the next level. So this is a dynamic thing. So having the book, is a key to having, especially of course, not the print version. The print version is going to have a new version maybe every year or so,
Something
when
like
it
that.
makes sense to do a print version. But if you have the PDF, the lean pub, then you're going to get the updates, and then these new topics are going to be in there, and when you're using that as a resource in your company and all that, people will be able to keep up to date, quite quickly. So that's really good. Um,
It will
and the
become
workshop days.
become
Sorry,
quite big at the end of the so
yeah, that's okay. But I mean, we discussed this already. The book is,
yeah,
yes, it's big, but it's got pictures, right? So a lot of people like pictures.
exactly.
So it sounds scary, but I've seen some pages in there where there's 25% of it is writing. The
Yeah,
margins are nice and big, and there's a nice drawing in there. So it's okay. It's not. I would say you could make this book a hundred pages if you have very tiny print and
yeah,
you have a
exactly.
very large format. You could probably do it, and especially if you took out the diagrams or made them really tiny, you could definitely make it a lot smaller. But then again, you don't want people going blind, so this is nice and pleasant on the eyes when you're reading your book.
Yeah,
You can get through the paragraphs very nicely, and the diagrams are legible and all that, and show the concept. So yes, it could be a lot shorter in terms of page count, but that I think would actually make it harder to read. So most
yeah,
people, like how some people have read the book in like a day or two. Like
yeah, exactly.
it's not that
Which is
it's not that
crazy. Which is
long,
really
right?
crazy.
So I judge the book by how long it takes to get through it, and I use I compare it to Michael Feather's Working Effectively Legacy Code. One of my favorite formats for a book, because he had the first third of the book about the concepts, and then the remaining two thirds were all the patterns that he talked about, mostly about how you unit test in different situations. But it
Yeah,
was really like a combination of learning and all that. And so I think when there's a good format for a book, it goes pretty quickly. And your format is walking through the building of an application, and I think
yeah,
it's amazing how it just captures the reader to just continue. It's like, oh, I wonder how the next part will be built, because we're
yeah,
going to get to
exactly.
this problem. So it's wonderful. So I don't think the book is too long, and I think you've done a good job of keeping it in a the print to be not too small, so it doesn't hurt your eyes, and then you have plenty of illustrations to get the concepts across. And so while it may look like it's 500 pages, it really isn't that bad. So
And one critique I always get about the book is that it's so opinionated because it's using the Spring framework and it's using Axon, because I wanted it to be a real world example. In the course, we are not using Axon. We are not using any framework at all. So
yeah.
it's really, course is really plain back, simple coding. You do everything by hand. So that I think people will really like that.
Yeah, I mean the concepts are universal. So
Exactly.
when people tell me that, it's like it doesn't matter. I'm not working on any project that's based on Axon, and I can apply every single thing you've written in there to any project I have. So
Yeah.
it's not an issue at all. So yeah, definitely definitely do that. And then the workshop is coming up this Thursday, and you have a webinar on Wednesday. So this episode will be probably airing just before those. So if you're listening to it, tomorrow is the workshop, and after tomorrow is tomorrow is the webinar, your webinar, and then
The
after
webinar
it,
is on
the next
Wednesday.
day
Yeah.
is the workshop.
The webinar is on Wednesday. Workshop is on Thursday.
Yes. Yeah. So definitely, if you're on the fence about the workshop, it is filling up though, so be careful. Don't miss out on that. Um, but yeah, go to the webinar. Right, we're going to have quite a lot of info about the basics of all of this. It should give you a good insight about how all this is put together, and then that should make it a little bit easier for you to attend the workshop if you decide that that's what you want to hear more about and learn. Then definitely on Thursday go to the workshop after the webinar. And then the advanced version is the following week. So if you're already familiar with event sourcing and event modeling, or at least you think you can, you think you want to learn some of the other aspects of it, there's an advanced version which is more dynamic. The workshop on Thursday is more tailored to just getting through the concepts. So there is some interaction, but it's very guided. So if you're new to it, it's perfect. It's an intro. It's really good for that. But then on the following week, it's the one where that's why we limited it to 10 people only, so that if you have questions on the advanced kind of level, you're not going to be in a workshop filled with like 50 people.
Yeah.
And so, we want to get to all of the advanced questions pretty much if we can during that workshop, and work through those problems together. So that's the following week. And now after this, we're basically going to have the workshop dates for the remainder of the year. So I think to start, we're going to try it once a quarter, once every 3 months to have this. I think having it more often would be a little bit too much back and forth. But if we ever run out of space for one of those, we're probably going to open it up to adding another date. And then, of course, if your company has wants to send 5 or more people, we can probably just do a one-off for you. So we can probably do something like that. If you feel like you're going to take up half of the advanced workshop, might as well just do a private one, and then you get 100% of the attention to your company and your domain. And then of course it also helps with IP, because we can sign NDAs and not discuss your business concepts outside of with other people that are participating. So definitely look for those announcements. And I think that's it. So webinar, workshop schedule, and we covered the book, going to have the new chapters, and the online course to do that. So a lot of announcements, and
a lot of
thank
stuff
you,
going
Martin.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's always good. So let's get into some of the topics for this week. So
Nice.
I got caught by this new trend of vibe coding. I don't know
Yeah.
what the heck of vibe coding was, but then living under a rock like I do, just swimming in my own material for too long, I kind of get caught by some of these these new concepts. So was this a new concept for you as well, this vibe coding
It,
thing?
it even started to creep into the event modeling Discord, right? At some point it just popped up. Yeah, it was also new for me, so I heard about it, but I never paid real attention until I saw this story. There was this story of this guy who posted something on X. He vibe coded an app, had some paying customers, and basically told them, look, it works. You don't need developers anymore. Everything is great. You can just vibe code your career as a software developer. And then just I think one day later, they took the app apart because so what is vibe coding? This guy is not a software developer, has no idea of coding, nothing, and just used an AI and just code generated something and adjusted it a little bit, and in the end had an app that seems to be working. But there were so many errors, security flaws. There were OpenAI tokens directly in the code, and as soon as he announced that on X, people took it apart, and I think they really destroyed it within half a day.
Yeah, it's quite dangerous. I think it's showing the capability that you can do a lot more. We got that next abstraction level, like we've been talking about, in terms of how AI helps everyone.
Yeah,
Just like we had compilers saving us from doing assembly language coding. We could actually do something in C, and then we had dynamic languages, and we had a lot of drag and drop things like with VB6. You could really, you really didn't have to know a lot of the core details of how things work at the processor level anymore. So this large language model stuff is kind of another level of abstraction, really. And we kind of have to realize that a large part of programming was going on Stack Overflow and Googling, especially when we have all these
yeah,
frameworks, every year.
exactly.
Part of programming wasn't really being good at one thing, but part of it was really learning on the fly all the new things that happened. And so larger language models really help erase all of this excessive lookups. And you could easily burn 4 hours on an afternoon trying to understand a concept because you're using a new framework. These have definitely been shrunk down to minutes, and in a lot of cases, right? So that's good, but extending this to people that don't know how to program, you're going to drop the ball on a few things, right? Security, data retention, how you manage data. It's a big topic for us, of course. Coming from the event sourcing world, event modeling world, is that we really value understanding the system. And so I think what vibe coding does is it says get what you want without understanding, which is very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean
Not a,
it works, but not for too long. And
so
especially if you don't understand the basic concepts, I mean, you can get something working, but as soon as you face the first problems, you cannot vibe code yourself out of this hole. At some
yeah,
point, it simply won't work anymore.
yeah. I don't think people realize uh, how stuck they are until they've already wasted a significant amount of time trying to prompt their way out
Yeah,
of this problem. They actually don't realize how bad a decision they made, that they may have some bad circular references within the code in terms of how the workflows are orchestrated together, where it can very easily, I've even experienced this within event sourcing, which is hard to do. Well, maybe it just made the problem apparent a lot quicker, that your requirements, what you say to a large language model, may have inherent logic problems where you introduce the um, whack-a-mole bug. That is a cliche in software development, where if you have a bad spaghetti code system and you keep squashing bugs that come up, eventually the level of dependencies in your code will end up popping back. Original bugs you squashed earlier are going to pop up again because you
yeah,
inadvertently undid something that was part of a bug fix before. And those are very, very hard for anyone to track, let alone a large language model that's just statistically looking at what code makes sense. And yeah, so there's really no way out of this problem without having the understanding, right? You need to understand what you're doing,
yeah,
and what vibe coding does is it goes against that. It's like, nope, you don't need to understand what you're doing. You're going to develop this no matter what. And unfortunately, it's garbage in, garbage out. And I think we don't understand how much garbage we kind of bring in by having bad assumptions even about our own ideas. And just because we can say those bad ideas and we see things live on the screen, we're happy. We have this dopamine rush, like, hey, we're
yeah,
productive, we got something done. But it's like anything, like people buying things for a brand. It's got this silver polish on top. It looks really good, but underneath it's crap. It's like lipstick on a
exactly.
pig. It's all these cliches, and I think that's really the core problem. But vibe coding, there is a good part about it, is that if you do understand information systems and you do understand programming and you understand coupling and all of these things, like what we address in event sourcing and event modeling, then the vibe coding is actually a good thing, because we have the guardrails to not fall off some of these things, and you can really do that. And what I've been doing in the live streams is really kind of a form of vibe coding, but I really want to make sure, and if you can see in the last live stream, that we really put in all of the code into what goes into one of the slices in event modeling, which is right behind me, on those green rectangles. We made all the code necessary to make that happen, in as small an area as possible in the same part of the code base, so
Yeah,
that they are literally the Lego bricks that you put in. And I think if you vibe code that, so in other words, vibe coding is good if you have the guardrails there. And I think that's the next evolution. As soon as in the next couple of months, that's going to be the realization, and we're going to have vibe coding frameworks. That's my
yeah,
guess.
that's perfectly possible. But I don't even think that vibe coding is really the thing. I mean, you can just generate this code. What I really think is a thing is vibe modeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That is where it really gets interesting. Vibe coding is nothing that amazes me. You can just generate code. It's really generating code is not difficult. I
Yeah,
do it all the time.
it's no longer the interesting part. It's really,
No,
like you said, the understanding of the solution, right?
yeah. But when you start vibe modeling,
Yes.
there it gets really, really interesting.
So it kind of goes into maybe even some of the practices that are out there already, like mob programming and pair programming. If you extend this outside of the developer kind of arena, and start to look at it as, hey, we can all sit in a boardroom with stakeholders and other people, programmers, whoever, architects, and kind of vibe model, you know, what is our application doing? What are our goals? Kind of like in my presentations, I always give this like this pyramid of control in an organization. You have the vision at the top, right? The one sentence that encapsulates what your organization is about, and then as you spread out the pyramid going down, you get to the goals. Here's our 4 goals that we want
Yeah.
to. With Uber as an example, would be reliable drivers sent to the people that are good. So good drivers matched with good passengers, a rating system, and then know how far your ride is and know how much it's going to cost.
Yeah.
I have 4 general goals, and then you keep spreading that down. So just imagine having a vibe modeling session with the people involved from the very top all the way through. You can start to fill out workflows and all these things kind of to get
Yeah.
what's behind me. And it could come from just regular conversation. The large language models should be able to map what we're talking about, what we want out of this system, to these slices that we keep talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are already people working on this. I'm working on this, and I know Sam is also working on this.
Yeah. So am
So
I. Yeah. Everyone's working
yeah,
on it.
we are not too far away from that. And
No,
just
no, it's
imagine
very close.
the business people having these discussions beforehand, and you already start everything with a pre-built model, a rough sketch of a pre-built model. You don't start with a with a blank whiteboard. You
Yeah.
already have a model, just coming from the business people's discussion.
Yes.
Amazing,
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. It's really good. It really does. You have the problem with the current, um, with the past way of doing things is that you had the vision and the goals lost in translation on the way down through that pyramid. By the
Yeah,
time you had developers working on the code, it was so far removed from what the goals and ideas that the executives and stakeholders had that there was always this problem with these developers are no good, we're not getting what we want, right? Now you have a way to tie everything together, that these the solution that's running with an event model that's been vibe modeled, you know where it came from, right?
yeah,
You understand where it came from, you understand what the code's doing, and you can really measure whether those workflows actually are there or not. So you get exactly what you need. So that's, yeah, interesting. I'm really happy to be working with Sam and you and the rest of the community, because yeah, I think code generation, you're right, is kind of like, it's going to happen. It's already happening.
yeah. It's not a big
It's
thing.
yesterday's news. It's really talking about the models. Talking about what is replacing programming languages. It's the modeling languages, and event modeling has been there all along, and it's a real mature way of dissecting what your system's supposed to do. So it's a
Yeah,
natural fit. It came out of the pain points that we were, trying to address, and so by making sure that we use that as the format for how we talk about solutions, we know that all of the things that need to happen are taken care of, because that modeling language, event modeling, has actually come out of addressing the problems of automating systems. So, and getting the ideas, and that, behavior driven design, all these different ideas that were highly influential in creating event modeling are there as the underpinning. And so
yeah,
you will have a much better time with event modeling than without, if you try to attempt to do this and with just the vibe coding. So
exactly.
start vibe modeling. Maybe that's what I'll start the new
Let's coin this term. We
vibe. Yeah,
coined this
that's
term,
your.
right modeling.
It's yours. You get to keep it. It's Martin. Mark the date down. Recording on March 23rd. Vibe modeling became a thing thanks to Martin Dilger. Yeah,
Nice.
that we can have some cool pairing online. We could do some streams where we can live event vibe model some systems. So I'm looking
Well,
forward to that.
I will actually do a stream tomorrow with Jake. Maybe we do some vibe modeling there. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm supposed to do that every Monday with him too. Hey, are we supposed to do that together, the 3 of us, tomorrow? I
I
forget
don't
now.
know. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe that's when we can do it. 3 people can model something, vibe
Nice.
model something. That'd
Yeah.
be really cool.
Nice.
All right, so yeah, that's a good topic. People look into that. Let's look at some of the other topics here. We have splitting the event model.
Yeah.
I had a question about that.
That came
To
came
split
up.
or not to split? That is the question.
Yeah,
Like for
that's a big question. That came up last week, and honestly, it comes up a lot. When do you split the model? Do you keep everything in one big model, So when you look at the articles we write and the stuff we write, it's always mostly about one model.
Yeah,
Do you build massive models where everything is in there, the whole stack? I don't know. Sometimes yes, but most of the time for me, no. I
okay.
have many models on my boards, typically smaller models, and I link them so you can navigate between these models. So I don't have this massive
But it
model.
is on one Miro board, so you're flying around on
Exactly.
one
That's
Miro board. Yeah,
important.
yeah.
That's
That
important.
I think that people start to think about multiple models when you have multiple Miro boards. I don't like that. I think it starts to
Yeah.
get into the wiki page problem, right?
It's
Where
hard to keep track. I don't like
yeah,
that. So that's always my advice. Keep everything on one model. It's not that important if you have one big model or if it's multiple models, but you need them on one board because you need to be able to quickly navigate between these models.
yeah,
Otherwise, you will lose the big benefit of event modeling, which is readability. And
yeah,
if you lose that, it really gets hard. I have a few clients who started very early splitting up to different boards because they think it's a good idea. Keep everything separated. You have teams that own boards and stuff like that. It didn't really work. So
yeah.
keeping everything on one board as long as possible. So Miro is pretty good at that. You can have
Yeah,
many,
it's much
many
better
elements.
these days because I remember a few years ago, the implementation of Miro was not optimized, and I think people just got usability issues with the larger Miro board.
Yeah.
The way memory was handled and what was in scope, what was in view, um, was hard to have all of these objects rendered and be usable. But I think they did a good job of optimizing this because that's no
Yeah.
longer the case. I
I think they,
one
they, they pretty much solved that. I did a lot of performance tests for my Miro toolkit and wanted to see how much can we handle on one board. And it's really handling 30,000 elements is really not a thing. It just works. So you
Yeah,
can get pretty far with
that's
that.
a really good job by the team there.
Yeah.
As opposed to other tools, because I certainly have some, even on my Draw.io small project that's behind me. I see some performance issues, and it's because it's just this basic tool that kind of probably renders everything in behind the scenes and doesn't have a lot of the optimizations,
I
especially
think
like
it's
with
not meant for that kind of use case, not yet at least.
yeah, exactly. So I think when you're paying for something, you expect some benefits, and I think on the enterprise scale of things, Miro does answer that problem. And we've looked at one of our clients' boards. I think I finally found like the largest event model we've ever
Yeah.
seen to date. It's one of our clients has it, and it's in the fintech space. I was just astonished as to how many event models are on this Miro board. It's I think I at least saw 50 rows,
It's
and
so
I
insane.
mean, zoomed out, you couldn't even read what they were, but that
Crazy.
whole organization is using one Miro board as a blueprint for how everything's tied together. So this is an incredible testament to how scalable event modeling is in terms of tying together a non-trivial um, public application that is in the fintech space that needs high level of accountability. That this works incredibly well. So the solution is event modeled and event sourced, and I haven't seen a system this large before done this way. It's amazing to
Yeah.
see it all clicking together and working with people that are relatively new to the concept. So it's a good testament that this not only scales, but it also is adoptable by companies that need to bring people that haven't been doing event modeling or event sourcing ever before to actually bring them on board and be productive using the approach. So I'm very happy to see that.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear how big these event models can get, and it would be so interesting to know if this client has developed some processes around this. How do you change something if there are processes? Because it's really hard to keep this maintainable at this size. At least that's what I imagine.
Yeah, no, they haven't done anything special in terms of that, as far as I know. I mean, I'll report back if I find out any more information otherwise. But we basically deployed our default stack that we use at Adaptec, and it continued to scale. We made some provisions for their requirements for the type of infrastructure they had in terms of the databases that they could support, etc. And then once that was done, they kept going with the, by the slice approach. So each feature you
Amazing.
slice, all of that cadence worked out perfectly, and it continued to scale. So I'm actually quite quite surprised how well Miro performs now, because I know that years ago that the size of the board certainly did affect the performance.
It's at
And
some
I
I
remember
know
having to split it up into separate Miro boards before.
at some point you couldn't even select more than 1,000 elements and stuff like that.
I
So,
think that limit was just on the API. If you
oh,
search for
possible. Yeah,
something,
that's
yeah, I think
possible.
that 1,000 object limit was what you got as a result if you did some sort of a in the uh, in the automation part. You're doing way more automation these days of Miro, so I would think you would be able to tell me quickly if
There is
that
no
limit.
limitation anymore. You can do
So the
crazy stuff.
1,000 limit is gone. Oh, that
Yeah.
was like one of the worst things about wanting to develop something for the Miro ecosystem is that, yeah, anything that was non-trivial in size had this 1,000 object limit. So now
No,
I'm happy to hear that that's gone, because I
if
mean
that
that
limit existed, I wouldn't even have started. So it would be that would be a
okay.
complete argument against any automation.
So
That
that must have been removed within the last 2 years, because when I was doing automations, this was probably 2020. I know we were in 2019 maybe, because we were doing a lot of like Jira reporting from event models. We had to have a Jira integration, because a client was using Jira to track stuff. So each slice had to be a Jira ticket, and so it just made sense to automate that. And I
yeah.
remember there was an issue with like once some of the queries on the API got more than 1,000 items, um, we had to keep our own. You had to keep your own sort of model
Oh,
of what
horrible,
you've.
horrible.
So you'd have to search for different things, or like listen to new events being, new objects being placed on there. Listen to those events, and then add to your sort of repository of what your objects were. So I'm glad that it's not that tedious anymore.
Yeah, I have this demo model that I used to play around. It has 15,000 slices, and I did so. I played around. Is it possible to put a slice in between? So move 7,000 slices to the right and put one slice in between, and that works. So there's
Wow. Okay.
definitely no limit.
That's amazing. So I'm happy that they did that, because that wasn't possible even like to select before. And so happy to hear that. But yeah, this question is kind of like two in one, because yeah, you kind of don't want to have one long event model that you have to scroll left and right forever. You kind of want them chunked into rows so that you can navigate them more easily.
Yeah,
I mean, as the tooling evolves and there's non-Miro tooling where it's dynamic what's displayed, that really won't matter. What you're looking at will be always a part of an event model. You can't see it all because it's just too large on non-trivial systems. But is it really valuable to zoom out and see a very long event model? Probably not. You probably want to have a listing of workflows in each section, and zoom in. I mean, you might want to have reports. What data for data completeness. Where do the threads go? How
yeah.
far data go through in each of these model parts of the model. So yeah, we'll see how that evolves. But glad to see
So
that that
this
all
big
this.
event model of your client is not one single row. So they have workflows and they have rows of. How is it structured? This big model.
It's rows. So it's rows of event models. So it's
One workflow is a row, or how is a row
no,
defined?
you can. I think you have multiple workflows per row, but once the
Yeah.
row gets pretty long, you start another one.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
But the
that's exactly how I also do it. Yeah, that makes a ton of
yeah,
sense.
yeah. So some of the workflows are trivially short. So it would be silly to have a whole row dedicated to a short workflow.
Yeah,
So you kind of, it's more like typing a paragraph. It's just get the next line
yeah.
when it gets hard to kind of read everything together. Um, but yeah, that's. But yeah, now it's nice that this problem's been resolved, because that before was I need to make a new Miro board, whereas now I don't have to. It's like the same Miro board, but a new section in the Miro
Yeah,
board. So
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
really helpful.
So
Yeah,
that proves actually you can do everything on one board.
yeah,
Nice.
And you should like that
Yeah.
idea of this being the blueprint for the organization and how the system works is really a fulfillable sort of goal. You can actually have a single model and a single you know on a single Miro board, and that model can have thousands of workflows, and they're all organized by something that kind of you can zoom out and see how much there is.
I
So
mean, I think that's quite impressive. If you say, and I mean, you have seen a lot of event models. If you say that's the biggest model you have ever seen and it's on one board,
yeah,
that for me really proves the point. Okay, we can do everything on one board. There's no reason to split to multiple
yeah,
boards.
yeah. I was quite surprised how much is on there,
Amazing.
and that not only is that it works for using it by one person, but I know that there's multiple people in this organization going to that model and
Great.
using it. So yeah, that's really good. And it's important to use it because if you don't use the event model for the requirements and saying which slices a developer is supposed to work on, what you want, then it falls out of sync, and that's when it becomes useless.
Yeah.
If you don't use something, it becomes not valuable anymore because it's out of sync from what's actually running in production and other areas, and so
Yeah.
you want to keep using it, and that is a sweet spot. That's why event modeling works, and with event sourcing, you have the open close principle. So once something is done, you're rarely going back to change it, and that's why this is a really good living document because it doesn't have this crazy amount of maintenance that regular wikis and other forms of documentation have.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think that's really that's the main reason why it works so well. You don't touch everything all the time. You only touch the new things, and everything else that works is just you don't touch it. You can look at it, but typically you don't touch it, and that's really the reason why it works.
yeah, and so that kind of bridges us to the next topic, which is the life cycle of a slice.
Yeah, that question was posted by Jake. The life
Yes.
cycle of a slice. So maybe we should quickly define again what a slice is, so everybody knows.
Yeah.
Uh, and for me, slices is really it's one of the best concepts I have ever discovered. This really changed so much for me. So a slice is basically just one small building block in your system. It could be we have different types of slices. State change slice, which basically brings information into the system, or you have a state view slice, which uses the information already available in the system and builds a use case specific projection. We call it a read model. And
Yeah.
the question Jake posted is, what is the life cycle of a slice? I can quickly read the question,
Yeah.
exactly what he posted. So he said, I think it would be interesting to discuss the life cycle of a slice from inception at design to client approval to implementation, validation, deployment, and invoicing, ops, and support. So basically, the whole life cycle of one slice.
Yeah, so life slices don't. I mean, they're really self-contained pieces of work, so they can be highly autonomous. But you also have to realize that they support a workflow. So I've rarely seen a single slice be approved, but I've always seen groups of slices to be approved. That's
Yeah,
usually like a workflow that the client wants. For example, the payment. This has to be paid for, so there's maybe 3 4 5 slices to get the payment done with an invoice at the end and an email or something. They said, okay, well, we have an average cost of the slice, each slice, obviously, that we get charged for, especially in fixed cost contracts. So they basically look at that as a unit of work. So the life cycle of a slice is really within the context of what the slice is part of. So I rarely see, one single slice being approved or disapproved. It's really
yeah,
because this slice is part of attaining a larger goal, a slightly larger goal, and a slice is really a good unit of work. It's a replacement for story sizing if you're in the agile thing. So medium t-shirt sizes, all that kind of isn't used. It's really looking at the complexity of the workflow by how many slices it takes to get
yeah,
from start to finish of that workflow. So if I'm going to pay for something, I'm going to probably enter in my billing info. I'm probably going to enter in my card. I'm probably going to have to prove, I don't know, my email, get a verification email. Could be a number of steps to get that. And so payment might be, 5 or 6 slices. I always see those kind of approved together. In terms of like the development cycle, I usually highlight them in yellow that, hey, it's Adam working on this particular slice of this workflow. And then when I'm done, I color it green.
Yeah,
And that means
me
it's
too.
finished. So in terms of the development lifecycle, we usually have the development start at one start tag, and each slice is developed as its own branch, unless it makes sense to have it in the same one. So sometimes the state change in state view, especially for a processor, makes sense to
Yeah,
have them as part of the same branch. And sometimes if it's the first time you're doing a UI for a couple that'll serve a couple of slices, you might want to have that as your branch. But it's a lot of times it's worthwhile to have them as separate branches because you want that modularity for different purposes, and then you just repeat the UI code in the other one. It merges just fine because now you have, that's what I do a lot in my stream, is kind of show how you cherry pick certain things uh, from another branch. Let's say you're working on one thing, one slice, Martin, and I'm working on another slice, but we have the same UI. So I said, hey, Adam, I finished the UI for this. I'm like, oh, great. Obviously, I'll be using this because we're using the same page.
yeah,
I'm just going to cherry pick that commit from yours, and I'm going to use that. Even if cherry picking is not there, I could probably just check out that and revert every other file and keep your particular view that you made, or I can just check out that view as a file from your branch,
yeah.
and uh, and so at least for our workflow, whenever someone is working on a particular slice, every commit is merged into an integration branch. So
Mm.
that would be another way that I could test that. Hey, while we're working on these things that happen to use the same UI, um, whenever we merge to the integration branch, we get the feedback that, hey, I screwed up something and it's not working with Martin's UI now, and I can discuss that with you or fix a problem that I found myself. Whatever, I have that integration done. When I'm done with my slice, I merge it into the QA branch, meaning that everything that's merged in the QA branch, usually a release candidate. We call it a release candidate because that's what we're attempting to release to production. And so the important part about the release candidate branch or the QA branch is that it has none of the integration incomplete features. So like when you're working on your slice and it's not absolutely 100% done, it actually is, that code has not touched the QA branch at all. It only has the slices that are finished and fully working. That gives you the guarantee that you're shipping the fully, like, no half baked code into production. You're only
Yeah,
shipping fully implemented slices into production. There's no feature branches or any of this other stuff. Trunk based development is really just relegated to just being the development branch for the feedback. So the continuous integration happens, and I guess continuous deployment if you want to have a test environment to see some of these half baked things working fine. We generally just leave that at the local machines. Um, but that's your CI/CD is on the development branch, and that CI/CD is not part of production. The CI/CD is at a lower level where only 100% finished slices make it to production. And you could, if you wanted to, deploy every single merge on the release candidate into staging or even production, depending on like what you need. Like some companies that have a high level of regulation, they never want to just blindly push to production. While some innovative companies, production is where they really test with their users, and so they will. They might have some config to have some of this blue green stuff at 5% of the chosen, you
yeah,
know, customers to actually see if there's any problems. Maybe really large scale stuff like Facebook would have that, where some features rolled out to, just a subset of things. But we generally want to push that type of orchestration to the infrastructure level, where we're talking about moving some traffic from from some clients to a set of servers that already have the later version, and keep the majority of the regular users on the old version. So blue
yeah,
green is kind of done in stages where you have it done there, but it's really not in any feature toggles. It's configuration at the infrastructure level. So I want to have an entirely different artifact deployed not code that I change. I don't want Night Capital to happen to any of our clients. And Night Capital is this famous thing where they shipped a testing piece into production, and in a trading system, you're not supposed to buy high, sell low, but they had this for a test, and unfortunately, that ran in production. So the system automatically was buying high, selling low, and in 45 minutes, the whole company went bankrupt. So that's why I never ever will have production code that has features that are not ready. I don't trust the if statements that a developer put in.
Yeah.
That also is subject to a bug or other things. So keep it as far away as possible. That's our attitude. If you want to ship, like if you're working already on trunk based development, there's no problem with having partially implemented slices being pushed to production if that's your choice. So it's not that this approach doesn't support trunk based development. You can certainly do trunk based development with slices. It's just that we at Adaptec don't do that. We don't want to have any non fully tested, fully implemented things going into production. We
Yeah.
work on too many companies in the insurance and fintech space where that is just a no go. And it's easy to adopt that same thing no matter what. So it's our default approach. Um, but yeah, so the lifetime of a slice is really kind of like how it goes from just being integrated onto the dev branch to see if it works to then when it's finished to actually get plopped into a release candidate branch, and that ends up being put into production generally when someone wants to see a whole workflow. So we don't really have this continuous deployment of partially finished workflows because a workflow can be made of multiple slices. We kind of wait until we have everything. We might have those partial ones in a staging environment where like I really want to test my screen if this works, and I might have some
Yeah.
like dummy UI and dummy routes in there that I push through as well, that allow me to like click through when it's non-functional. But then when I get to the slice that kind of is the work that I was working on, and I want to see it on a system that's kind of like production but not, then it'll work there, and I can test out the form that I made, and that all the validation happens, and that it stores the correct event, and all those things I can see live, and I'm happy. That's cool. I can do that, but generally, then once the release candidate has all of the slices from that workflow finished, then we can merge it to build deploy that artifact from the build of that last merge of that last slice. And then generally mark that as being in production by merging that into main, and having a tag with the version number and all that. And from that tag, you can start the next effort.
Yeah.
So we usually have start tags for each of these. And these are not like, I mean, they can be sprints. Sometimes like when you're just working on a whole bunch of stuff from many different workflows, you can do this as a time-based sprint every 2-3 weeks, whatever your sprints are. But then you just start a new start tag at the beginning of the sprint. So the idea is that because you're starting from the same place, that each slice can be included or excluded from the thing you want to build. So it gives you that without having to have if statements flipping on toggles and feature toggles. You just have the merge kind of tell you like I want features 1, 2, 3, and 5. Okay, so I'll just merge 1, 2, 3, and 5 on
Yeah.
QA, and then deploy that. And I have the one that I don't want not merged.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. So that's kind of the life cycle of a slice at our company anyway.
I do it very similarly, but I work a lot with feature toggles. So I don't have a problem to ship also unfinished code to production, but I toggle it. But I mean that's just how you define how to work. For me, feature toggling works quite well. I typically have a feature toggle per slice, so I can just toggle a slice, and either it's active or it's not active. And even if there is a bug, you could just toggle the slice, and
Yeah.
it won't work anymore. And this basically breaks the flow at this point, and then you can. I do that quite often. But
Yeah,
besides
and
that,
we
I
work with
work.
clients like this. Yeah, so
Yeah,
we've worked this way with clients because a lot of people have gone the trunk-based development route. So we
yeah.
do that, but for the default approach, we'd rather not ship something that's not finished.
I'm curious. Do you have? Is there a point? Do you have something like a definition of ready for a slice? So do you discuss that with clients? How does that work? Do they approve
Yeah.
the slices?
So yeah, I think it's when you can show. So at the end of a slice, we also do a demo, a recorded demo of that slice, which is why sometimes it's worthwhile to have dummy sort of screens that you push to the release candidate branch before long before you push to production, just so that you can kind of run through the application and say, "Here's my work that was finished," and it works. And it's actually really important if you're in places where you're in with a lot of other consultancies, etc. A lot of times someone will break the build or break an environment, and on demo day your stuff's not working,
Yeah.
and you better show that it works.
Yeah. I learned
So
that I learned
yeah,
that a long time ago. Always have a video of the working feature in
yeah.
it.
So I mean, I've been doing this for well over a decade. I mean, ever since I
Yeah.
started doing any of this agile stuff, because it was, you really get tripped up by people trying to merge their stuff in when it's not ready, or they have an opinion
Yeah.
on how part of your code that is in common with them, they'll change something right in the environment, and then your code doesn't work because of what someone else did. It worked just fine with what your efforts yielded.
Yeah.
So I always have a demo of the features working, and then if something doesn't work during a demo, I we fall back to playing the recorded thing, and then we have
Exactly. Yeah.
in these agile things, the retrospective part of the retrospective can be looking at why the demo didn't work, and then you can do the blame game of like who screwed up the environment just in time for the demo, because that's a no-no, right? You like, hey, who's
Yeah.
changing who's changing things in the 11th hour just before demonstrating to the stakeholders that something's working? That's such a nasty thing to do to someone, right? So you always want to have that demo. So yeah, part
But
of the end of a
the customer
slice.
doesn't care. The customer typically doesn't care, right? So if you can show it with
Yeah,
a video, I've never seen a customer who complains about that. Everybody expects,
yeah,
okay, it's a demo environment that can break. Have a video ready.
yeah.
Amazing. That's it.
Absolutely. So that's a, and I remember getting pushback from developers about this. Oh, we don't want to record. It's like, you know what? Like, your ass is on the line. You're going to get fired at one point because you didn't do this. Just watch my words.
Yeah.
So I couldn't believe that someone had, like, just press screen record as you test your own damn thing. That's
You do it
all.
anyways.
It's like, it's nothing extra. It's not even extra work. And I remember in this one company, the guys like tried to make fun of this, and they made this like iMovie bullshit thing that they're like, "Oh, Adam wants these demos, so we'll make this really good thing." And it's like, you guys are clowns. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, it's just crazy. The whole like I think it's the millennial kind of attitude of like, oh, you guys are old and you're doing things in an old way. I couldn't believe the type of disrespect that people have in this industry for people that have been around. It's just incredible. So
Mm.
but anyway, if you run across that, just laugh and move on to a better company. Honestly, if they tolerate that kind of behavior, you shouldn't even be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you build slices, is the UI for you always part of the slice, or is it something that different from that? It's part of the
No,
slice,
the
right?
UI is part of it,
Yeah.
unless the project is quite opinionated about the UI and has quite heavy ones. So sometimes in the past we have moved the slice to be half a slice. Half of the effort is the UI, half is the API and everything underneath. But
Oh, interesting.
generally, we've moved away back from that just to have the full stack for the slice. And I think this is a tendency that people that adopt the slice approach, there's definitely a tendency that they feel very unsure that they can include in the estimate the very different type of work that the UI is, that the back end work is. And so I see this as a common concern. But in the end, it really doesn't matter, just like the song says. um, so uh, that's, yeah. Once you have enough experience, you see that you can lump it all into one, and it actually makes things go a lot quicker because you have fewer pieces to manage, and that in the end, the simplicity wins out.
Yeah.
It's just about getting a good average, and I think that's what happens is that people don't have a good average of effort because they haven't done enough projects this way to have enough faith in the general estimate that will include the UI and the rest of the backend work. Once
Yeah.
you've done enough to have a large sample of what it takes you to do that, you can confidently say that I can take the UI all the way through the full stack as a slice. So I
Yeah.
understand that there's a bit of this, leap of faith, and that's why we're here to kind of say, look, you want to try that? Have us or Martin's company, whoever, do this, and we'll deliver those. We'll guarantee that, and you can use that as proof that these things take X amount of time, and that on average, and that is a good rate to pay people for that amount of work. And then you'll notice that the developers are also happy to make that handshake because they have that autonomy. And yeah, I think the core of your question is really about whether someone can naturally accept that the estimation of the back end work is similar to the front end work. I
Yeah.
think that's a tough leap for a lot of people. But once you understand that you need both anyway, everywhere, and that you have enough samples to kind of get what the average is, then you can set a price and say that just let's just keep it together. I
Yeah.
think that's the core. But yes, we did do that, and we ever since then we've reverted back because it's just we have good numbers on how long these things take, and we're happy to just have both included.
Many discussions I have when I discuss the slice-based approach, that the people always think there is one developer that takes the slice, and this one developer has to implement the whole slice. Means all the backend, all the front end, everything. So at least for me, this isn't the case. I do very few front end development because I'm simply not good at it, and never will be because it's simply not my thing. I do the backend. But typically, it's not that one developer needs to do everything. I have a UX expert, a front-end developer that takes care of the front end, and then we together implement the slice. And you do
Yeah.
the same,
So
most
you
probably,
can you
right?
can do that. We force people that are back end only to do front end and vice versa.
Really?
But it's yeah, we do. But it's not without help. I mean, there's
Yeah,
definitely people on our team that are really good on the front end, and so what they'll do is they'll help the other people if they're having issues. And the nice thing about slice is that it's a good bartering system. So part of the life cycle of a slice is to be the unit of exchange between developers as well, because we certainly have like someone dumps in like Next.js or some other framework, and of course a lot of the people that haven't had experience with a new front end framework, they're going to struggle and are like, oh man, this is a pain in the butt, but I can do all the
yeah,
back end really quickly. So what they'll do is they'll say, hey, look, and I think Eric is one of our guys that does a lot of front end stuff, and so hey Eric, can you help me with this, that, and the other in the front end? I'll let you bill for these other slices because I know you're taking time to help me with this. So to me, it just looks like, hey, I'm billing the client per slice, but I'm letting the team kind of self-organize and say
yeah.
like, if
For the
someone's
client,
struggling with that, then
it's
just help me. But then they barter it themselves, and then they can look at it on the
yeah,
hours that they spent too, because we try to average for an intermediate to senior person to spend 10 hours on a slice, top and bottom, all the way through. And so
yeah,
if someone's spending 20 hours, they're like, oh, I need some help from Eric because whatever, and I'm going to now have him help me do that. And now it's taking me 7 hours because he's really good at the front end. I can average that because I'm gaining 3 hours for each slice because Eric's helping me. But hey, Eric's not doing any work, so he's missing one or two slices. He's been helping me for 20 hours now, right? To help me on my three slices. I say, hey, Eric, why don't you bill for one of these that you helped me with? And that's kind of how it works. But generally,
yeah,
what happens at this point is that the slices are very copy paste. So even the UI ends up getting copy pasted. Like
yeah.
the
Of
guys that
course.
are not familiar with the framework eventually, they kind of see like, oh, this is what Eric did for these slices, and I kind of understand now. Oh, this is React. This is how the components work. This is how we're treating them. I can sort of do the same thing, and maybe I'll just get 1 hour of Eric's time to help me look it over.
Yeah,
By
for sure.
2 weeks time, none of that happens anymore. You're kind of on board, and everyone's going the full stack again.
Yeah,
But that unit of work and that exchange is really good, and I think it really empowers teams that are working together to kind of help each other and be able to say that, you know all the way down to like even going for vacations and stuff, because when you're on contract you don't have vacation time, but you want to have all this ability to manage your time. And so a lot of the developers will say like, hey, I'm going on vacation, who wants my slices? I'll do this, and maybe if you go on vacation, they'll take yours. So And to me, I don't care. It's a self-managing system, which is
Yeah.
great. At the end, it's really, do these slices work? If they did, are they deployed? If they're deployed, client pays for them. Client paid for them. The people that did the work, they get paid for it. Very, very simple. All
Yeah.
the subjectivity is gone. I don't need a project manager cracking the whip as to like who's doing what, who's capable of what. Hey, if I have a junior person, their slice takes them a week. Hey, the senior person can get done, like a very, very senior person can get it in 3 hours. That's okay. That's that's the state of how the different people's abilities are. And if you're a junior person, it's going to take you longer. And guess what? Your equivalent hourly rate is going to be less because you have less experience. But I don't have to be someone that's a manager telling you, I think you're junior, you're only getting this much money per hour, or I think you're senior, you should get more.
Yeah.
That subjectivity is incredibly toxic and can lead to a lot of dysfunction in the organization. So I'm very happy that the amount of bias and subjectivity is removed, because it's like, hey, it either does what it says on an event model and what this slice shows, or it doesn't. It's like, it's pretty black and white. And hey, if it was a junior person that took 1 week to do that, or if it was a super senior person that took 3 hours to do that, I don't care. It's that value being delivered to the client, and that's what the price of that value is, and this is what the compensation to the developer is for that. And I don't care if they're female, male, black, or white, or whatever. The work is done. My subjectivity has no place
Yeah.
for
I
that.
love
So
that.
it's actually, it creates equal opportunity. I keep using the example. We had a person that was a roofer that fell off and had workers' compensation pay for some extra career changing stuff. We were able to take that person on to get them into programming because there was no risk. We de-risk that. That's a wonderful
Yeah.
thing to be able to do for someone. So I use that example all the time because it really shows that we didn't risk a project by taking someone on that's very, very junior, but
Yeah.
needed this career change because they had no choice. They were out of work.
Yeah, I use this very similar example, which is getting people into projects which are too old, which are normally not hired anymore. And at
Right.
some point in time, I'm really looking forward to do exactly that, because if they take longer, no problem. Well,
Yeah.
you earn a little bit less. That's fine,
Yeah.
but they will get better over time. But you can get people into these projects, and I'm really looking forward to do
Yeah,
exactly.
and it's also, if you think about it, especially in the days of boot camps and all that, some of them are charging $20,000-$30,000 Canadian to attend for like 3 months or 4 months. That's 4 months that you're not working, and and you already spent $20,000-$30,000.
Yeah,
You could just work for us, make maybe $3,000 or $4,000 a month, but you're learning, you're working, you're getting experience. That 3 months is way better working on slices with one of our companies because we de-risk the process. These
yeah,
slices are delivered either by someone that's junior or senior, but in the end, they adhere to the SLA and they deliver the state change or they don't, right? End of
exactly.
story.
And you don't learn everything like you do in these boot camps. You learn exactly the stuff you need in real world projects. That's a big difference.
Well, you're learning a lot by example because the previous
Yeah,
slices have like what you do. And like I say in my streams, most of the, like all the patterns that we use, the core patterns are really reduce. You're using an accumulator and then reducing based on what events happened.
yeah,
That's it. Like it's just that one pattern over and over again. So yeah, you're not learning all of these different things. I think what happens with the boot camps is that you kind of try to learn the latest hype thing. How to use back in the day React, or how to use Next.js or Vue or whatever,
yeah,
and that's like their sell, and that's not really teaching you a lot of fundamentals. They do have like fundamental programming principles as well, like you learn about the for loop and all this other stuff. But then it's just too low. It's not like you don't really have this really good live real system. Like you have your own pet project. I'll make an Uber clone or whatever. They give
yeah.
you those things. It just doesn't match working on a team with others that are working on a real system, and that's because no one's willing to take the risk. But if you remove the risk component, which slices do, you can, and you can do a lot of good that way.
Yeah,
So yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Ah.
I find it quite interesting that you force your developers to work both on the front end and on the back end and everywhere.
Well, I don't force them. I mean, they can self-organize,
Yeah, of
and
course.
luckily we have a lot of people that are full stack, which is good. Um, but it's if I was to start from scratch with no one and had to gather a team, I wouldn't be as worried as I used to be about who I hire. I think there would be, you know, a lot more flexibility there because even if I couldn't find a lot of front end developers, I know that the slices would take longer, and I know that these people would realize that, hey, this is a front end heavy thing. We know that we're not that good. We know that we have to suffer a bit of learning, but as we get better at it, our our velocity increases, and so our billable rate goes higher. But we also have learned a new skill, and so it's been a good a good way of measuring work and getting the right experience in that. So
Yeah.
and now that you have AI and all that, I mean, if you're not familiar with React, you could probably get going a lot faster than you would have 3 4 years ago.
I
Um,
mean, it's learning these front end frameworks is not the big thing. So I can do front end development. I can do React, and I'm not
oh, you're
bad at
talking
it.
about the actual style. Like, does it look
It's
nice?
the
Is the color
CSS.
correct? Yeah.
CSS is the problem.
See,
That
I loved art growing up. I drew a lot, so I love that stuff. So it doesn't scare
I
me.
hate
But
it.
yeah, I can
In
understand if you
15 years, I never managed to
if
understand
if
CSS,
if
and
the
I never
paintbrush
will.
is your enemy, then maybe yes.
Horrible. And I always have an expert who does that job, and I will
Yeah,
not do
and
it because I'm
to be honest, a lot of companies or a lot of clients already have
yeah
a design department where they are doing that, and they've already picked the colors and all those things. And like you said, like if you
yeah
know React and all of that, you can apply, the uh, kind of the design, the primary and secondary colors they picked, and how the margins are supposed to look, and
yeah
what you react to, how you react to the different form factors, whether it's a mobile browser or if it's a full browser. They probably all did all this for you already anyway. And so then, yeah, you're fine. But yeah, so we honestly, we don't have many people that are like designers. Like we generally either have enough example designs before that we just can change them to kind of say, is this kind of what you want? That's fine. But most of our clients have their own, especially the large ones, have their own
design
marketing team that
system.
already has
Yeah,
the templates of what the thing's supposed to look like. So it really depends. The startups, maybe those are the ones that kind of lean to us a little bit, and luckily we have a few people that can do some of that. But even if we didn't, I think there's enough stuff now to kind of get something that works. And then when that startup has enough money, they can kind of have the marketing design person say, what's the look and feel of this whole thing that looks better logo and all those things. I don't want to be designing logos. I want to make sure the systems are reliable, right?
yeah,
So
right,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So and brings us to the last topic, discussing with the C-level people. How do
Yeah,
you So that's a problem, right?
that's a problem, and I even had a few two. I had two calls with clients this week who have exactly this problem. They want to adopt event modeling, they want to adopt event sourcing, but they don't really know how do we start this discussion with the C-level executives. They do not want to go into the details. They just want them to understand what is this
Mm-hmm.
about. Is this just about sticky notes? They want them to understand. How do you approach something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I, I approach I approach that. I mean, it depends who the C level, because I've been lucky that some of the C level people that I have been really hands on. One of our
Okay, you
um,
can.
longer clients has a CEO that's incredibly UX hands on. So showing them that the event model is just an extension of what they've been doing in Figma by keeping all the UX that they've worked on and adding the you know the accounting aspect of how information is treated along the way was a very small leap for them to make, and they really appreciated it. But in these other cases where it's really a far arm's length, top down kind of separation of like, these are the workers and I'm up here at management, I don't want to look at 1,000 things. You have to start to look at that pyramid that I was talking about. Can you talk about their vision
Yeah,
with them
exactly.
and say
Yeah,
that it'll break down? Like, you have to understand that you have a connection of your vision to how the work actually gets done, and because you don't want, no matter how anti detail they are. They have to understand that every time it gets delegated to the next level, that you're not losing the intent. There is this clarity of communication. And so I generally would talk to them about the workflows that are supported, because that is not the minutia of the how each screen looks and like what the data is.
Yeah.
But if they're willing, I want to show them the beginning screen and maybe the end screen of a workflow, saying that
Yeah.
we
I do that
have
too.
here's the 10 important screens that show success of reaching these workflows, which tie into the goals that support your vision.
Oh
And I
yeah.
want that to be 5 slides, no more, right? And
Nice.
basically go through 5 slides with the C-level people that we are. This is the vision of the company. Here are your 5 goals. These are the workflows that we have that support that meeting those goals. And here's a tangible screen that'll be shown here. Here's a tangible screen that'll be shown here. There's maybe anywhere between 5 to 10 screens that show that when someone says, "Is your project done? Is it delivering your vision?" You say yes. And I know that I have these key frames in the workflows that show evidence that this actually has been done, right?
Yeah.
If they want to ask for estimates, don't have to show them the whole event model. Just say, this is going to have a budget of $500,000 because there's this many slices in the workflow that supports this end goal, which is your
Yeah.
which supports your vision in the end. And here's the next workflow that supports this goal, and here's the next 2 workflows that support this goal. Here's 2 screens at the end of each of those, and here's the budget for each of those.
Yeah.
And we've done enough to say that from beginning to end, we have an 80 to 90% chance of being correct in the amount of work, which you cannot do with just agile, throw things at the wall. We have an idea of, we've done a collaborative design to understand from everyone that we haven't dropped any information along the way. And you don't have to walk through that, but it's available for anyone that you delegate to have that audit done at any point in time. And if you have a switch in your direction, uh, even if it goes up to the vision, even if you change the vision, but if you change some of the goals, we can actually audit what was done already and see which parts we can reuse, so you don't have to start from scratch on all of them. So
Yeah.
talk to them
Nice.
about time and money, about being flexible, right? Don't use agile, use flexible. We have the flexibility to switch tack if you have feedback. The market's changed, right? Maybe you don't have as much money now because of the tariffs talk in the global market. How can you adjust, still attain your vision? How do you adjust your goals? Because the costs to reaching these goals, to being successful in these goals, are supporting these workflows. So some of these have to go. Some of these have to be limited.
Yeah.
Okay, if this screen can only show this much, do you still feel that you've reached this goal? That's the level of talk I would have with the C-level, so they make the
Nice.
decisions, because you're affecting their budgets and their timelines as to what they can promise their shareholders and whoever else. And so that's how I would approach C-level. You don't want them to swim in the event model. For a lot of them,
Exactly. Yeah.
like you
I
need a
agree.
five you need a 5 slide presentation that takes them from their vision to their goals, and has reference points into a real event model that they don't have to see. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you have a zoomed out Miro as the last slide, and you circle in red on there where their workflows that support their goals are.
Yeah. On a
Say,
very high level. Yeah. I like
a
that.
very high, like they don't want to zoom in to what that is, but they want to see that the work has been done. Like, oh wow, that's great. You have designed the workflows that help me achieve this goal. You've given me a price and a timeline, and it's better than any agile thing could have done. That's great. That's wonderful. I can use that to go to get more money. I can use that to plan the budget for the next 5 years or whatever it is that I want. Right? That's, you've given them that level of control and the reassurance that they have the control to switch a direction, to add or remove parts at a very large level, a very overarching level, and that they have a way to audit the impact of those decisions.
Yeah. Nice. I like that a lot. I like how you combine or how you connect the goals with the workflows and the vision and everything. Because what one client I was talking to, they were really afraid because they thought they have to show the fully fledged out event model to the C-level executives to discuss that. And this is not what you do because you will lose them within a minute. They will not look at that
Yeah.
at all because there's so much detail.
You
And
use the event model as a source of your 5 slide presentation.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that's how I would discuss it. Anyway, that's just my approach. It depends. Like, if you're lucky if you have a C-level person that likes to get involved in the development, and we have a few clients like that, and they have no problem going through the event model. But then you have the others that just they want to trust the people they have appointed and delegated work to do that because they don't have time, and that's totally valid.
Yeah.
You
So
have to
yeah,
address both types. Mm-hmm.
exactly. So typically, the most senior level executives I have to deal with, they don't want to read the event model. But what
Yeah,
I typically suggest is to have them on the very first event modeling workshop, at least for an hour or
yeah.
so,
So they
to
can
get
get
the
them.
vision
They
into
can get
the
their
model.
vision across, right, and their
Exactly.
goals. They have
Yeah.
to. They have to set the direction of the boat. Like, we're
Yeah.
going this way. I don't care
Exactly.
how many times. I'm not going to watch as you row the boat, but I want to say I want to go this way, and that's
Yeah.
absolutely right. Yeah, but
Define the
we just
last
put it at the
event.
top of the event model. Here's our vision. This
Yeah.
company is about this, and our goals are to provide these benefits to our clients, right?
Exactly.
And from there, the management, the directors that are involved on the actual creation of the event model can take that from there,
Yeah.
and they can always come back with these 5 slide presentations about this is how we're going to achieve our goal, and this is how much
Oh,
it's
yeah.
going to cost. This is what everyone thinks, and everyone's willing to push in this direction to do these things.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that helps someone out.
Great.
Yeah. So very long episode, but that's okay. We ran over by 20 minutes. Actually, I thought we were going to be a lot. The amount of topics that we had, I'm quite happy that we finished it within an hour and 20. So
I,
it's
I
not too
think
bad.
this was an amazing episode. There was really some practical things. I really think many people might be interested in this episode.
Yeah, and probably pull out some of these topics for the newsletter. Maybe now that you have more time, maybe I'll do it. I should get going on a lot of my writing, but I have a lot of other contracts to deal with and things like that
Yeah.
right now. So we'll
Mm.
see how it goes. But thank you again, Martin, for a wonderful episode, and hope
Yeah. Thank
everyone
you.
found it useful. Again, join us on Discord to give feedback on some of the commentary we gave, and we'll see everyone next week. So yeah, look for the links at the end of the show, and the Discord link is always on the eventmodeling.org site, along with the other links for the book and the workshops, etc. So thanks again, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.